Rex Hoggard and Ryan Lavner. Guys, what have been your observations so far through a couple days here at Pinehurst No. 2?
Thank you, George. Both of us were in the media center this morning, and plenty of happenings, lots of press conferences that we'll get to, but both of us also had an opportunity to go out on the golf course today. What'd you make of the way the course is playing and the setup?
Well, Rex, I was here about a month ago for U.S. Open Media Day, and I've been struck by the transformation just over that 4-week period. I thought at the time that if you just gave this golf course a haircut, it could host the U.S. Open, and said, I'm here 4 weeks later, and it is that setup completely on steroids. I think when talking to a lot of the players over the first couple of days that I've been here at Pinehurst, the one thing that comes through is just the number of options that players have. I don't just mean off the tee. You've heard different strategies from Victor Hovland, who said he's going to be playing aggressively and hitting as far as possible, or Bryson DeChambeau, who actually conversely said he's going to be leaning back, but also kind of around the greens. And we've seen everything from 3-woods to 4-irons, 7-irons, 55, 60-degree wedges around these greens, even a putter, of course, as well as one of those options. It's just so much different than the week-in, week-out monotony that you have on the PGA Tour, which tends to be so one-dimensional. So I think that's going to make for a very good watch, but I think every player is very pleased with the setup so far.
Very subtle, humble brag. I was here a month ago to play the golf course for Media Day. I like the way he just got away with that one. I was out walking with Billy Horschel this morning, and I was taken by the idea. You talk about the options, and from a couple of spots, specifically on the 5th hole, kind of short and right, he would hit a driver out of the chipping area, he'd hit a wedge, and then he would putt, and he told me you can do almost anything from those lies. He went back to the idea, I talked with a statistician this morning, that Martin Kaymer, when he won here in 2014, almost exclusively putted from off these greens. And if you look at what he was able to do that week, not just win, but win in dominant fashion, I think we're going to see a lot of players going down that road as well. And then you look at what you have to do well here. And I did hear Smiley Kaufman on the previous segment talking about, well, driving distance is going to come in handy. Accuracy is also going to come in handy, because if you look at what happened back in 2014, the idea that the field hit less than 50% of their greens in regulation, that is a very, very low number compared to tour standards. So even the good ball strikers, we're talking about Scotty Scheffler, we're talking about Colin Morikawa, they're not going to hit the same number of greens in regulation that they're accustomed to. So they're going to have to put themselves in a position in the fairway to make sure they can, I'm not going to say attack, but at least put themselves in a position where they can make a par. And then when they do miss greens, they're going to have to scramble, because you look at the most important thing last time around in 2014, it was scrambling. You had to find a way. Martin Kaymer, he one-putted 49% of his greens. So short game is going to be a huge combination of what they're trying to do on this golf course. Now, we talked about it on the Golf Channel podcast with Rex and Lav, the idea that Jon Rahm is coming into this event, and we've kind of withheld judgment on the idea of where Jon Rahm's game is right now as it applies to the major championships, but now you have an injury in play. What's your level of concern?
My level of concern is high, because Jon Rahm literally said today that it is a, quote, concern that he's dealing with this toe injury on the eve of the U.S. Open. And if you listen to his press conference earlier today, and obviously we were both in the room for that, he's clearly sort of hitting back at the perception that he is fallen off, or he's taken a step back, or he's sort of an afterthought in the world of golf now, especially considering the Scotty Scheffler run that he has been on. And I can sort of understand that kind of hitting back at that suggestion. He is 7th in Data Golf's rankings. He's 9th in strokes gained total when you look across both the PGA Tour and the Live Golf data that we have. But I think it also has to be put into context. This was a player who last year at the U.S. Open was in the midst of a 4-win season. He'd won the Masters. It seemed like something special was brewing, potentially rivalry rise with Scotty Scheffler. That has not come to fruition. I think that's obviously disappointing for golf fans, but I think it's also disappointing for Jon Rahm, not being able to have that sort of competition week in and week out against Scotty Scheffler to test himself. But yeah, it's certainly a concern injury-wise when it comes to Jon Rahm.
Last couple of weeks when it came to Jon Rahm, a lot of gymnastics on my part, trying to avoid some sort of snap judgment. Because the idea, and I think we both agreed with this earlier in the season, that whatever this version of Jon Rahm's going to be like, we're probably going to have to wait until after the major championship season to make that assessment. So I wanted to get through Rural Troon before I really looked hard at exactly the way he was playing. And look, the narrative here is somehow going to Live Golf was going to impact his game. I don't particularly agree with that, but you can't deny the results right now. He had a 40th place finish at the Masters, and he missed the cut at the PGA Championship. It's a very un-Jon Rahm-like performances at the the only two events that we can measure him on. So the idea that he's coming into this event injured, we both watched him limp in and limp out of the press center this morning for his interview, that cannot bode well.
I mean, he's literally wearing a flip-flop, at least he was on Tuesday morning when he arrived at the golf course. If you're looking for some sort of silver lining, he did play this golf course a couple of weeks ago in a practice round. So even if his practice time at Pinehurst No. 2 is limited week of the tournament, he at least has logged a couple of practice rounds earlier in the year.
And you look at Tiger Woods, finally, the idea that he was in the press conference today, sort of talking about where the state of his game right now. What are your expectations here? We do this every single time, and it's getting more and more difficult.
It certainly is. I think we have a large enough sample size now to know that, yeah, Tiger Woods can probably make the cut, but it's unlikely that he is going to contend. When you look at this golf course and the history that he has at Pinehurst No. 2, whether it's in 1999 or in 2005, he also had opportunities to win in both of those two editions. Did not play in 2014 because of the back issue. But you look at this golf course and what it's really demanding of the players. One is precision into the greens. Tiger Woods, throughout the hallmark of his career, was the game's preeminent iron player. You think about scrambling and the arsenal of shots that Tiger Woods possesses, you would think in Tiger Woods' prime, yes, this was obviously going to be a very good fit for him. That has actually been his bugaboo, Rex, in the very small sample size that we have in 2024. He's hitting just 50% of his greens and scrambling just 50% of the time. He absolutely has to clean that up if he wants to even sniff contention this week.
All those things that we talked about that are going to be key on this particular golf course, you're right, he's struggling at, but neither you nor I are afraid of hot takes when it comes to what we write on golfchannel.com. And I wrote this afternoon the idea of why this could be the major that we should be looking forward to. And look, it was a bit of a stretch based on just the simple idea that Tiger Woods does not have a top 10 finish in a major championship since he won the 2019 Masters. But you look at what he's done on this golf course in the past, it's flat, it's warm. I think it's going to be a good round, test for him.
A benefit is he's averaging fewer than 3 birdies per round. That's probably going to be about the average here at the U.S. Open. Birdies are going to be very hard to come by.
George, my humble friend played here a few weeks ago. I'm not sure if you knew that.
Did not play particularly well, but I did play.
How about that plug? Oh, when I came here for Media Day, I got to play Pinehurst No. 2 a month ago. Lav, I'm just proud that you're putting on a brave face after last night with your Georgia Bulldogs.
Ooh. Let's just go to break, George.